What's up, guys? Jared Welch, RacingDudes.com. I'm here with my boy, Aaron Halterman, also co-owner of Racing Dudes. We're here together to talk about Week 11 of the Breeders' Cup Longines Classic rankings. We are 5 weeks out, Halterman. It's hard to believe. Only really one prep race or winning your in challenge race left. You got the Lucas Classic as well this weekend. Sometimes has, Rattle and Roll is in it this year, so you maybe have one, maybe two that could show up in the Classic out of that race. And then, of course, you have this weekend the funded and National Treasure of all horses kind of headlining the Awesome Again, which is a Breeders' Cup winning you're in for the Classic at Santa Anita, which, of course, the Breeders' Cup will be at this week or this fall. So you kind of have, these are like the last big ones, with 5 weeks out. These are really the last preps. As a lot of these horses have horses are starting to arrive already at Santa Anita. So this is it. As we look here are the rankings of this week in the Breeders' Cup. Kind of initial thoughts. Obviously, the big one, Saudi Crown, jumping in there out of his Pennsylvania Derby win.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows really what to do with this one. It's funny. Sometimes these rankings that, they kind of mean a lot. It's kind of a really good field, and you're trying to distinguish between the two. Thinking of like Nick's Go and Essential Quality, Hot Rod Charlie, that year, there was some debate. Then there's years like last year where it's Flightline, and anybody that's not putting Flightline number one is just trying to be crazy. And then it's this year where you just don't know. I mean, this is just a mixed bag. No matter how you look at it, you could make a case for almost any of the top 10, except probably for one on the list there. So it's just kind of a mixed bag at this point for the Classic.
Yeah, and kind of as I mentioned there, you have these final preps here that I don't necessarily think, it doesn't feel like to me, as you look at this list, horses that are probably likely to be in the Classic with wins or running well would be horses like Defunded or even like a Slow Down Andy there's a bunch in that race, especially being out at Santa Anita, that you could see going into the Classic out of this race, assuming they were to run well. And then, with the Lucas Classic, that one feels like, the American Revolution was another Pletcher there, 5-2 and 7-5 on Rattle and Roll. I mean, that feels like a big race for Rattle and Roll to kind of make his case to say, hey, we're going to the Classic next. So it does feel like if anything else, we're going to see a big field. I feel like this year in the Classic, because we've mentioned a lot on all our shows, Blinkers Off and the Magic Mike show and all the different we do. It's like, if this is the year you have a horse that's eligible, we saw last weekend, we saw Next dominate, and we kind of like, why not just throw the horse in the Classic? Because I get the horse wants to maybe go even longer than 1.25 miles, but of all years, it feels like you might as well take a shot.
I would if it was me. Like the thing right with Next, the horse that is a marathoner, but it's like, okay, 1.25 miles, that's not a marathon, but it's still a longer distance than some want to go. And then you kind of just look at the fields, and it's like, yeah, he could probably compete with them. And then I think lastly, with a horse like that, is you're going to run him in the the marathon, which isn't even a Breeders' Cup race anymore. Like, is that where you're going? Like, what's the point? It kind of like that. So. But again, it wouldn't really be what he's best at. 99 years out of 100, I would say, don't do that. But this year, to me, if you've got one that can get into the race, if you got one that's eligible, it's just a year to take a chance. This reminds me a lot of like the year Fort Larned won, the year Mucho Macho Man won, even the year Drosselmeyer won, who was kind of like a Next type of horse with it. Kind of, longer distances is where you really wanted to see him, shortened him up to 1.25 miles, but he was just better than that group. So that's what we have this year, in my opinion. And I think that does lead to, hey, if you got one that's qualified, if you can get in, run.
Yeah, we'll look here at the top 10. This is, of course, Halter and I are part of the Breeders' Cup voting panel. I think there's 40 plus members of that throughout the country and in the media that vote every week, and we rank our top 10. Obviously, this is week 11. We've been doing it, since early summer. And so, as we look at this, you got 6 out of the top 10 in this rankings are 3-year-olds, and including the top 3 is Arcangelo, Go Rocket Ride, and Arabian Night. To be clear, Arcangelo is a clear 1 based on the ranks. 333 votes, 25 first place votes. Clear horse as far as the classic goes. Top 3-year-old, of course, winning the Travers. We'll do that for you. So Go Rocket Ride, Arabian Night 2 and 3. White Abario, your Whitney winner, the top older horse, I guess, in the rankings. Forte 5. Proxy is 6. And then really I'd say past 4. Top 4. After the top 4, it gets, you could make a case for a lot of different horses. Proxy is 6. Bright Future is 7. Saudi Crown, we'll talk about him in a second. Saudi Crown joins the list here at 8. Ushba Tesoro, who, by the way, won I guess it's a prep race in Japan, kind of a build up to the classic one. I think it was today. Looks really good. So Ushba Tesoro got 2 first place votes in there, and Mage rounds out the field. And I think Mage really more than anything is just in there because, one, I think they're pointing to the race, and 2, he is a Derby winner, right? And so you kind of have to keep including them. But it really feels like those are a very top-heavy list. So the first horse we'll talk about real quickly is Saudi Crown, winner of the Pennsylvania Derby. Right after the race, and we talked a lot about this as well, like everyone's on back and forth. Is this a dirt mile horse? Is this a classic horse? Obviously, you win the race like the Pennsylvania Derby. A lot of signs are showing running the classic. We just talked about if you have a horse that's capable of running them. In the other regard, it's like, man, I don't know if he wants to go in a mile and a quarter, but a mile, it feels like he would be really tough, but he would also have to face a horse like Cody's Wish. So where do you land on that?
To me, it depends on the owner and what the goal is with the horse. I think the best race for the horse is the mile, talking about the dirt mile. I think that is a perfect spot for him. I don't know if he can win it or not, but I think he has a better chance to win that race than the classic. And I also think it's a race that could kind of project you. And we've seen this towards a race like the Pegasus next, or to go overseas to Saudi or to the Dubai World Cup. A lot of milers that have run in that race have kind of gone on to do those kind of things and do well. So, you think about Life is Good. You think about City of Light, 2 horses that won the mile and then went on to win the Pegasus. And so to me, that's the long-term approach. If you kind of just have a short-term, let's swing for the fences approach, I think the classic's probably the right move, because at the end of the day, the dirt mile is one of the less, prestigious of the Breeders' Cup races, for sure. It does kind of get forgotten at times after the whole thing's said and done. And so the classic, though, that's the big one. And you kind of look, it's like Santa Anita, a track that plays to speed. This horse has a ton of early speed. Maybe he gets out in front and they don't catch him, or maybe he gets out in front and one of them catches him, and it's still a really good second, even if it's third. You can't tell me there's no chance he could get second or third in this race, because the race this year, like it says, is just leaning towards a little bit of chaos could happen. There's not a standout. Again, I think the dirt mile is the more logical play, but I wouldn't be too critical of the connections if they said, you know what? He won the Pennsylvania Derby. He got a nice buyer. Let's take a shot at the classic.
Saudi Crown is owned by FMQ Stables, which is based out of Saudi Arabia. So they are very clearly saying, it makes sense, right? We want to win the Saudi Cup. That's their home race, and obviously worth way more than the Breeders' Cup Classic. And so I'm with you. I'm with you in both regards. I think if I own the horse, if I was the owners, and I would probably run the classic too, because it's like, how often, if you have a classic horse that can run top 3, and then I'd run them all the big ones. But logically, I think doing the dirt mile into the Saudi Cup makes the most sense to give him the best chance to win that Saudi Cup that I feel like they want to win. So, and like you said, we've seen that kind of, at least with the Pegasus, we've kind of seen that move before. He's bred, the breeding feels like he could go longer, but you also, you watch him on track. I don't know. I'm on the fence with him. He more than anything, if you do run him in the classic, we have a super amount of speed signed up in the race, and that with him and Arabian Night just alone. But there's a bunch of horses in here that like to be forwardly placed. So him in the race alone adds a lot of intrigue, I think, from a pace standpoint. setting up for a horse like Arcangelo that seems like would benefit greatly from it. The last horse we'll mention real quick before we end this thing is Forte. You know, in my personal rankings, I didn't even rank Forte in my top 10. I don't know where you stood with that one, but with him, it's like he hasn't had to work since, you know, the poor Travers effort. There's not a lot of talk from the barn about how he's doing or what's going on. And here we are, Halterman, 5 weeks out, no work since a really bad Travers. I don't think, especially when you have Bright Future in the race for Todd Pletcher, for Rapoli Stables, I just think we're not going to see him again this year.
Oh, I totally agree. I would be completely shocked if Forte was in this race, and I don't have him ranked either because of that. And look, I mean, we've been around the game a long time now. You know, it used to be the newbies. Now we're not so much. But you see, you know the workout patterns, and you know it's just not going to happen. Now, I mean, I guess if he pops a work this weekend, maybe he's kind of maybe back on, you know, somewhat track, but that's not going to happen. I don't think he's in the race. I don't know when we'll see him again, if we'll see him again, but I certainly don't think he's a serious consideration for the Classic. And like I said, you know, you kind of disappear off the work tab, and then you look up and it's 5 weeks to the Classic. Well, that tells you pretty much all you need to know. He's probably not going to make this race.
No, it doesn't look that way. So, yeah, you and I both didn't leave him on there at all. He is 5th on the list, though. So, obviously, we'll see how that shakes out. All right, guys. Make sure you tune in to Blinkers Off this week and every week leading up to the Breeders' Cup, as I put Halterman and I'll put myself on the spot. We give out our kind of early predictions of who we think is going to win this race. So good luck. It might be the toughest Breeders' Cup race this year, certainly, but look forward to handicapping that as we get closer to the race. Make sure you give us a comment below. Who you like in the, you know, where do you look at, how you look at this list? Who are we missing? Who are the voters missing? Who do you like? Do you think Saudi Crown will go to the Classic? And if he does, do you think he's got a legit chance to win? Make sure you comment below. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that notification bell as we go live and have new videos coming out towards the Breeders' Cup. All right, guys. I'm Jared Welch. He's Aaron Halterman. See you guys.
RacingNews.com is your home for the best free picks for every race, every track. Summer's here, our picks are heating up. We want you to join us in the fun. Subscribe to the Racing Dudes YouTube channel right now. Click the notification bell. You don't want to miss a single one of our awesome videos. Want to make money betting horses? Bet with the Racing Dudes.